I've given the manager a lot of stick. I've doubted him quite often in the last 12 months or so, but he's finally won back-to-back games in the Premier League and the first manager since Louis van Gaal to win on enemy soil at Anfield. So enjoy the moment, Ruben. You got your tactics spot on, and I apologise for everything negative that I've said previously.
Liverpool weren't played off the park. Cody Gakpo hits the post 3 times. Cody Gakpo has a free header that could have made it 2-2. So I don't think this is a moment for Liverpool to panic or overreact. It's a bad run of results against good teams. The big question is, are Liverpool still going to be in the title race when they're able to sort all these things out?
But they can't afford too many more defeats. They're 4 points behind as we sit here now. There's not that much margin for error because I just don't see where Arsenal are going to drop their points.
Is this a case of a owner admitting that he's made a serious error, or was Ange Postecoglou dealt a tough hand?
Marinakis, for me, has created this issue by himself.
This is a team that have assembled a lot of players but haven't necessarily worked out how they're going to use them, Kev.
It's absurd. They've got themselves into a real mess.
Their dream target, and I wrote about this in the notebook a few weeks ago actually, is Marco Silva. But at the moment they're worried about PSR having sacked 2 managers and therefore paid them off. They can't afford the compensation clause. Is Sean Dyche going to take the job knowing that he's just keeping the seat warm for Marco Silva? I think maybe we're going to see a longer term commitment after all.
It's the Premier League All Access podcast with me, Sam Matterface, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook, and Kevin Hatchard. And Crook is in a very good mood. Sorry, Kevin, I'm afraid that he's going to crow a little bit because his team won at Anfield for the first time in about 150 years. And as you can imagine, being at Anfield yesterday with him, he was insufferable. Have you recovered? Because you weren't going to drink. He told me he wasn't going to drink for 2 weeks. And then, obviously, they won, Manchester United away at Liverpool. So he was straight on the whiskey.
It would have been rude not to. Have I recovered? Just about. I mean, listen, it was a great day. It was a great day for Ruben Amorim. It was a great day for Harry Maguire. It was a great day for some of those summer signings as well. And obviously a very bad one for Kev and for Arne Slot. But I've given the manager a lot of stick. I've doubted him quite often in the last 12 months or so, but he's finally won back-to-back games in the Premier League and the first manager since Louis van Gaal to win on enemy soil at Anfield. So enjoy the moment, Ruben. You got your tactics spot on, and I apologise for everything negative that I've said previously.
I've never seen anybody flip-flop as much as this fella, but anyway... The good news is that he's completely transformed, because when I saw him at Anfield earlier in the day, about 12:30, he was absolutely dead. He looked like Alan Brazil after a week at Cheltenham. He was absolutely on the floor. He'd been on a stag do in Manchester for the weekend. And then, he said, at the time we were walking up the steps going into the stadium at Anfield, he was saying, I'm not drinking again for 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. I can't ever face it. I've got to get on a health kick. This is terrible. And then by 6:30, he was completely different character, Kev. It was like, football is medicinal, isn't it? It does change your mood very quickly. But that was some recovery by the Crookmeister, all because of the fact that Harry Maguire scored that late goal.
It's muscle memory. He's just used to snapping back into shape after these exploits. That's what happens. Years in the making. This is, elite level training that he's put in.
I'm getting too old, though. I'm getting too old.
You said it. Right, OK, let's move on to the games themselves, because there's a lot to talk about. Ange Postecoglou sacked after 39 days, 40 nights as the manager of Nottingham Forest. So we think that Sean Dyche is going to take over there. There's a big week of Champions League and Europa League action for you. We've got live football for you Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night and Saturday night on talkSPORT. It is the place to be, as it was this weekend and will be again. Right, let's start at Anfield and the implications of that defeat for Liverpool. Because, Kev, there's no sort of dressing it up. This is 4 defeats in a row for the champions.
Liverpool weren't played off the park. United were great in what they did. I thought Cunha was absolutely outstanding, no doubt about that. I thought he led the line magnificently, protected the ball, drew contact, played really, really well. But Cody Gakpo hits the post 3 times. Cody Gakpo has a free header that could have made it 2-2. So I don't think this is a moment for Liverpool to panic or overreact. It's a bad run of results against good teams. Chelsea are a good side. Palace are a great side. They're playing really good football right now. And United played well enough to get the win. So I think it needs time. The big question is, are Liverpool still going to be in the title race when they're able to sort all these things out. Mo Salah's not playing well at the moment. That's clear to see. But I think what we have to bear in mind, and I know Liverpool would never use this as an excuse, and it's not an excuse, but we just don't know how what happened to Diogo Jota and his brother over the summer has affected them. And it won't affect them all at the same time. It won't affect them uniformly as a squad, but it does change the dynamic. And I know they wouldn't want to use that as mitigation, but, you know, for some players, it will come at different times.
Absolutely, and it's something that we mention every time we go to Anfield, because I think it is something that we cannot forget that has affected that squad and will continue to affect that squad going forward. Kev did mention that Mo Salah is not playing particularly well. It's something that we highlighted during our coverage of the game yesterday. And lots of the fallout has been, you know, should his position in the team be under threat? You know, he's constantly the first name on the team sheet, but do his performances warrant that?
No, if you're being brutally honest, and I know they say form is temporary, class is permanent, but this slump that Salah has found himself in has been going on for some time now. It's not just a this season problem. He didn't finish last season particularly well either, and I wonder if the time has come now for Arne Slot to make that big decision and to take him out of the firing line. Hugo Ekitike did enough in the early weeks of the season to justify his place on the team sheet. He's the fall guy because they've paid such big money for Alexander Isak, but neither Isak or Salah are pulling up any trees. So I think Ekitike is within his rights to knock on Arne Slot's door and say, do you know what? Put me in the team and I'll get us out of this slump.
For all the criticism that he's got so far, Florian Wirtz did come off the bench and affect this game. And I'd expect him to be in the team when they play Frankfurt in midweek, Kevin.
Yeah, I think he's affected every game. He's not at his best. That's absolutely true. He's not quite the player that I know from the Bundesliga, and not just the Bundesliga, but from Germany and from when Leverkusen played in the Champions League. But all those little touches are still there. I still think he's learning where to be. You know, he picks up great positions between the lines. He picks up those pockets of space where he can do damage. But there's an element of Liverpool players kind of being on each other's toes at times. I think those rotations aren't quite there at the moment. And that balance isn't there. It's too easy to get at that back four at the moment. We saw that with that first goal. I know there were circumstances that were a bit odd with McAllister having the head injury and what have you. But Virgil van Dijk seems really out of sorts at the moment. And he's used to having that solidity around him. He's used to knowing exactly where he's going to be at all times. He looks a bit unsettled. And with Konate really up and down as well, that's just spreading that uncertainty throughout the team. But I think they're all fixable problems. And we've said before, when they did this big splurge in the summer, this wasn't just about this season. This was about 2, 3, 4 seasons in the future. It has to work on that basis because the amount they've spent, there's very little wriggle room in terms of trading. You're not going to then get what they spent for Isak back. You're not necessarily going to get what they spent for Wirtz back. So they've got to persevere and make this work.
Premier League watchers veer violently from one sort of narrative to another on a week-to-week basis. Liverpool were running away with the title in the first few weeks of the season. Now it's Arsenal's to lose. Manchester City were never in it. When you look at the top of the table now, actually it's a lot more competitive than I think many people thought. Manchester City right up there.
Yeah, I still think Arsenal are going to take some catching just because they control games in a way that at the moment Liverpool and Manchester City aren't able to. They don't look like they're going to concede. They certainly don't look like they're going to lose too many matches.
But Liverpool aren't out of it, is the point.
No, they're not, but they can't afford too many more defeats. They're 4 points behind as we sit here now. There's not that much margin for error because I just don't see where Arsenal are going to drop their points. I agree with Kev. We know the power brokers, the decision makers at Liverpool, they won't be panicking. They'll realise what Arne Slot achieved last season and they'll realise that it's going to take time for these new signings to adjust. But again, you're talking about players being taken out of the team. Milos Kerkez was someone I highlighted to you on Friday that United could really exploit. They did that with Brian Mbeumo, they did that with Amad Diallo as well. And I wonder if there's a case of putting Robertson back in the team just to give Virgil van Dijk that solidity and that reliability that Kev is talking about, that familiarity, if you like.
Well, absolutely. You've got to remember that this Liverpool team doesn't have the fullback that they used to have on the right side, don't have the fullback they used to have on the left side, and the goalkeeper's been different for half the season because Alisson is injured, and Mamardashvili, who was unconvincing, by the way,
shaky
in that game, is between the sticks. They play Frankfurt on Wednesday night. What can they expect from Frankfurt?
I think Liverpool's away games in the Champions League are all really tough because of the fans involved, having to go to Galatasaray, having to go to Frankfurt, having to go to Marseille, having to go to Inter. They're all really tough away games. But what you've got is a Frankfurt team that's got a lot of inexperience. And so if they click, it could be a really tough night for Liverpool. But equally, they make a lot of mistakes, this Frankfurt team. And if Liverpool start well, get a goal early, I could see Frankfurt falling away. So it's a really difficult one to call in terms of, it's not down to Liverpool per se, it's what Frankfurt you're going to get. They got battered at home by Bayern recently, beaten 3-0.
Yeah.
And, in the Champions League, they won the first game 5-1, lost the second game 5-1. So Lord knows what we're going to get in midweek.
Quick question about the personnel, because how have they replaced Ekitike and Marmoush from last season, because those two basically fired them into the Champions League.
Yeah, so Jonathan Burkhart's come in terms of the strikers. He came in from Mainz, scored a lot of goals in the Bundesliga last season. He's scoring goals, but he's just still adjusting, I think, to his teammates. Can Uzun's one to watch. He's a teenage attacking midfielder, really, really talented, has scored some great goals already. He's added consistency to his game. That's been the big key with him. One to watch is Ritsu Doan as well. He's a Japanese international, super tidy in his work, really consistent. So they've got, it's more doing it in the aggregate than just trying to replace Ekitike like for like. They're trying to get the goals from all areas of the team.
Okay, Arsenal victors on Saturday night. It wasn't routine. It wasn't an easy game for them. They beat Fulham by a 1-0. But obviously they're big title contenders because of their defensive solidity. They never look like they're going to concede a goal.
No, they don't. And actually, as you know, as part of the Stag Weekend, we had a group bet, and Arsenal were the last team that we needed to win to give us a nice little kitty for Saturday night. And when they went 1-0 up, everyone was saying to me, cash out the bet, cash out the bet. I said, boys, Arsenal don't concede. They're going to win this game to 0. Absolutely no panic. And that is, for me, what sets them apart. You just know that once they take the lead, they're very difficult to pen back.
Yeah, and obviously the way the defence functions is great, but it's that midfield combination that works really well, Kev.
Yeah, and I think Zubimendi's giving them a different option. Marino's super solid. Declan Rice is one of the best midfielders around. And it is that structure. It's quite interesting because you look at the way Liverpool have played in the latter stages against Chelsea and Manchester United. It's all very free-form jazz. And if it works, it's great. With Arsenal, it's background music in the hotel. You know exactly what you're going to get. It's just very, very solid. I think, and we've said this a few times, I think they're the best out-of-possession team in the world. I think there's nobody that hits their level. Atletico don't do that anymore in terms of being able to grind out those 1-0s all the time. The other thing as well is set plays. And, I'm sure we'll come on to talking about Forest. Set plays are hugely important. You're talking about 30% of goals, for or against, and they work on them relentlessly. And they see it as a challenge, and the playbook is probably, like an NFL playbook. And it should be, because it makes a massive difference. You look at the goal, Gabriel makes that run, gets the flick on. Trossard knows exactly where that ball's going because they've worked on it again and again and again and again. And
he said that in the interview, right? After the game, he said, as soon as I saw Gabby make that run, I thought to myself, I'll wait here for the tap-in. And that's exactly what materialised. And actually, for all the magic that they've added to the group with Eze and bringing in Gyökeres to try and be that more blunt instrument up front to score them goals, sometimes you still need to rely on your tried and tested methods, and they're quite happy to do that. They've scored more goals from set pieces than anybody else in the Premier League so far this season. But they face another tough game. But you'd back them, wouldn't you, at home to Atletico?
Absolutely, I think you would. Arsenal's home form for the last few seasons now has been pretty much on point, and they were very good at home in the Champions League last season. Kev's alluded to it there. I'm not sure this is the absolute optimum Atletico Madrid side that we're going to see. There's certainly been better teams under Diego Simeone. So I think Arsenal will have too much. You read out a stat, didn't you? Was it last weekend that, according to our pals at Opta, not only they're favourites for the Premier League, statistically they're favourites for the Champions League as well.
And because they don't concede goals from open play, mainly, I think, and if you don't do that, then you've got a great chance of winning more games. So statistically, it all adds up in the end. Talk to me about Atletico, because it depends what day it is to what team you get. They can go and absolutely batter Real Madrid, and then they can let you down.
Yeah, it's a team that's very different. If you think of all the Atletico teams that we know, they were all grizzled and they were fight like demons to actually get that 1-0. It's a more modern team now. They're trying to evolve. Julian Alvarez is a massive player for them. I think people often think with Alvarez, oh, well, surely he'll come back to the Premier League at some stage, or maybe he'll go to Barcelona. The opportunity he's got at Atletico is one that he won't get anywhere else, and that's to be an absolute superstar for that team and have that team built around him to some extent. But you look at all the signings they made, they're largely attacking ones, like guys like Alex Baena, Thiago Almada's come in. They're all guys that can lend their skill to that attack, but Alvarez is the main man in it. So I'm fascinated to see how the team develops. But as we saw at Anfield, they're dangerous, but you can get at them in a way that you couldn't get at Simeone teams for many, many years. So they're going through growing pains at the moment, but they are dangerous when they play well.
Chelsea-Ajax is Wednesday night. Big game for Enzo Maresca, bearing in mind that their Champions League form had not been perfect. They beat Benfica in the last game, but courtesy of a deflected goal, and no João Pedro this week because he is suspended. But their game against Nottingham Forest at the weekend spelt the end of Crook's favourite manager, Ange Postecoglou, who was dismissed after 39 days, 40 nights, and, get this, just 8 games in charge. I mean, a lot of the reaction has been, this is ludicrous. Why on earth are we in a situation where a manager comes in and loses his job inside 8 games? Is this a case of a owner admitting that he's made a serious error, or was Ange Postecoglou dealt a tough hand?
Well, probably a combination of the two. I know you're of the belief that 8 games, when you're trying to completely transform a playing style, is not long enough. I would caveat that, or come back at it and say, well, they've been 2-0 up at Swansea in the Cup and lost. They played Midtjylland at home and lost. They've not managed to beat Sunderland or Burnley. So there have been games there where they should have got more points on the board. Marinakis, for me, has created this issue by himself. He didn't need to fall out with Nuno Espirito Santo in the way that he did. He should have been glorifying in Forest's best season for 3 decades. They should have been targeting that Europa League. Obviously, they got in via the back door and tried to win that Europa League. So the fact that his ego got in the way and therefore he's made a change, I think is going to come back and cost them. And now they're going right back to plan A, aren't they? Because he wanted a more attack-minded manager. He wanted a different playing style. Enter the building Sean Dyche, who is much more like Nuno than he is like Ange Postecoglou. But this tells you where Forest are at now. It's no longer about trying to win trophies, as they told us when they appointed Ange. It's about making sure they don't fall back into the Championship.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that they'll still have the ambition of trying to win the Europa League because they'll believe that they've got the squad depth to do that. And I think that's half of the problem, actually. They've got too many players. I was looking at the bench at the weekend, and I was looking at the players that were in their civvies standing on the sideline. You're talking about the Scotland #1 goalkeeper, Crook's best mate Angus Gunn. You're talking about James McAtee, the record signing Amari Hutchison, and Dylan Bakwa, all just standing around watching proceedings because they can't get in the match day squad. This is a team that have assembled a lot of players but haven't necessarily worked out how they're going to use them, Kev.
It's absurd. And they've done this before. Let's not forget that they actually signed a ton of players that Nuno then shook down into what he actually wanted, and it coalesced around what he eventually did last season. But this is just a tale of hubris. This is just, well, we've done really well, but we didn't make the Champions League. We're annoyed about that, and we should be playing more progressive football. And we get a bit seduced by this sometimes, this idea of this perfect way of playing and really attacking football is going to get people off their seats. But this was effective football that worked. And actually, if you defend well and you counter-attack at pace, and they had guys like Ilanga who could do that, brought in Ndoye, who I thought was a great signing for that, for Nuno's
Absolutely.
football. Perfect for that. And then you try and change to Postecoglou, and then you panic, and then you go back to what you were doing before. It's nonsensical. So I think that this is a mess of their own making. I agree with you completely. They've signed far too many players. And what it does is it just foments this disquiet. It's happened at Chelsea to a certain extent because they're whittling down a huge number of players to what they eventually want. And I'm just not sure it works in the long term. So I'm really pleased Forest are in Europe. I really like the club. I lived in Nottingham for a long time, just a few doors down from the ground, so I'm pleased for them. But they've got themselves into a real mess.
Daichi, done and dusted?
Getting there. I'm interested to see how long the contract will be, because it's my understanding that initially Forest only wanted to appoint him until the end of the season. Obviously, he wants a longer term commitment. They toyed with the idea of Roberto Mancini. I'm not sure that ever really got off the ground. Their dream target, and I wrote about this in the notebook a few weeks ago actually, is Marco Silva. But at the moment they're worried about PSR having sacked 2 managers and therefore paid them off. They can't afford the compensation clause. Is Sean Dyche going to take the job knowing that he's just keeping the seat warm for Marco Silva? I think maybe we're going to see a longer term commitment after all.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if I was Marco Silva, I don't really understand why I'm switching Fulham for Nottingham Forest. Okay, there might be more ambition at Nottingham Forest, there might be more money further down the line, but it's not a secure environment. And right now, because of all of the problems that have been going on there, I'm not sure I'd want to jump ship. But he is an ambitious manager. He's someone that's worked in the Marinakis system before. I think because of the relationship between the two, eventually that will happen. It's a matter of when rather than if. And if that is the case, I can understand Sean Dyche's reluctance to take the job just till the end of the season, or ask for an extended contract to ensure that he gets a big payoff at the end of the season, no matter what happens. We shall see. Keep listening to TalkSport and talksport.com for more details as and when that deal is announced. Right, okay, let's move on. Well, Saturday saw Manchester City win at home against Everton, and after a tough first half, they conceded a few chances in that game. They emerged, and they emerged mainly because Erling Haaland stepped up. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed, Kev, because I captained him in my fantasy team this week, and he should have had 4, not 2 goals. But, boy, is he hungry for goals this season. Who's the best striker in the world, him or Harry Kane?
It's a really good question, that, because I was in Munich to see Kane give arguably his best performance for Bayern so far against Dortmund. Not only did he score, but he produced the pass of the season in the build-up to their second goal. From the get-go, he was dropping into his own half and playing these kind of quarterback passes out to the flanks, like inch perfect for Elise or Diaz. So he's the best version of himself, I think, right now. I think he looks fully fit and razor sharp, bodes well for England for the World Cup next year. And there's an argument to say Haaland's playing his best ever football, because it's not just the goals, it's the movement. The movement is so good, so intelligent. I think because City are having to be a bit more direct at times, that's actually really playing to his strengths. And so I think the thing you'd say about Kane is that he's in that conversation with Kane, Haaland and Mbappe. They're the 3. And I think Kane deserves to be spoken about alongside those 2. And it shows you just how consistent that he's been. But Haaland is a defender's nightmare. The physicality, the pace, the movement, he's got everything.
Yeah, he certainly has. I think Harry Kane's playing the best football of his life. I said that during the commentary of the Latvia game the other week. I've been watching a lot of him in preparation for the England games, and you're absolutely right. What he's doing brilliantly is he's dropping in, linking the play so superbly, but also getting up and finishing the moves. In fact, there was an instant the other month, I think it was, where he picked up the ball on the edge of his own penalty area, started a Bayern move, which ended up with him scoring at the other end. He is that integral to the way that they are playing right now. And Haaland is integral to the way that City play, but in a different way, in that he always comes up with the goal. He doesn't necessarily get involved as much in the build-up play, although I think he is incredibly useful in the defensive phase when it comes to defending set pieces, etc., etc. Talking of set pieces and defending, Tottenham Hotspur had a problem with that last season. They had a problem with winning at home as well. And they lost at home again, this time to Aston Villa over the weekend. We sort of had a discussion about the Morgan Rogers goal and whether Vicario could have done a little bit better. We're sort of split on that. But overall, this is a problem, isn't it? The home record for Tottenham Hotspur, because even though they actually played quite well in the game, and I think they probably deserve something out of it, but they just seem to not be able to get over the line at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Yeah, obviously lost to Bournemouth. Were well beaten in that game. I was there that day, and actually the final scoreline flattered Tottenham. Couldn't beat Wolves. Everybody else is beating Wolves at this moment in time. And Aston Villa, not quite the force they were. Although I have to say, credit to Unai Emery. After a poor start to the season, he does seem to have turned it around. And actually, he's not relying on the signings, is he? Because both Harvey Elliott and Jadon Sancho were notably on the bench yesterday. But in terms of Tottenham, you look at what they've got at the top end of the pitch. It's not good enough for me to sustain a Champions League challenge. Obviously, Dominic Solanke's injury is really unfortunate. Thomas Frank's not been able to use him pretty much at all. Richarlison is not going to be a striker who's going to score goals with enough regularity to get you into the top 4. I'm not sure about Matthias Tell. I was a bit puzzled they decided to make that signing permanently. I think Wilson Odobert is a bit lightweight at this moment in time. So it's going to be a tall order for Thomas Frank, and I thought it was really interesting that he was speaking about Harry Kane. I don't think he's going to come back to Tottenham, nor does Kev, but he was also speaking about Ivan Toney. That is a signing I think I could see more likely to happen than the emotional return for Kane.
They have no focal point at the top of the pitch. They have, I mean, obviously Solanke is out injured, which is a real problem for them, but Richarlison isn't a focal point. He's not consistent enough to be so. Tell, hustle and bustle, but he hasn't got the quality. He's still very young, I know that, and he may well grow into a very good striker going forward, but at this moment they need something else at the top end of the pitch, and I think January is really key for them in that regard, especially with all the investment that we're told that they have got now. But they do need something, because I think actually most fans were pretty impressed with the way that Thomas Frank has started, but when you don't win at home, it creates pressure quicker. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be under pressure. He's not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you win at home, then you never have to worry, because your fans, the majority of your fans, get to see you being successful. But if the majority of your fans are seeing you being unsuccessful on a regular basis, it can cause a bit of frustration. Tottenham fans have had enough of not winning at home. You know, they've got a great stadium, they've got a relatively good team, they've got a good manager now. They need to start putting points on the board at home. And actually, speaking to him afterwards, he was pretty clear that he knows it's an issue. He said, I've got to sort it out. That this main priority number one. But he said talking about it is not enough. Doing something about it is the most important thing. Wolverhampton Wanderers need to do something about their predicament, Kev, because they're stranded at the bottom of the table.
Yeah, they are. And, you know, they're in games. They're competitive in some games. But it's really odd, because we were talking about Vitor Pereira last season and the way that he'd been able to transform them, the way that he'd been able to find a structure that worked. And they just do seem like a mess. And I wonder if actually this is about investment in the team and it's about recruitment, and it catches up with you in the end. And I know Strand Larsen's done well at the top of the pitch, but I look at a lot of their players and I wonder if they're of the requisite quality, and I'm not sure they are. I think defenders that have come in, Agbadu I thought had potential, but I think he's a bit error prone at times. I worry about the goalkeeping situation sometimes as well. I think they don't have a goalkeeper that can be consistent. They have goalkeepers like Jose Sarr who can hit a top level but can't maintain it. And so I do just wonder whether, even though I like some of the midfielders, really like Andre, I think he's a really good player, but I just don't think there's that quality across the squads that can keep them out of a relegation battle. It's going to be a really long, hard season for them.
It's something we've been talking about on the show for ages, isn't it? The fact is they keep selling their best players and not replacing it with the quality. And if you're asking them, you just look at the team sheet this week, you know, you look at those players and you just think, oh, I haven't seen half of those on a regular basis. And if you haven't seen, bearing in mind the amount of football we watch, we haven't seen them regularly, then they're obviously new to the Premier League. I think so many new faces coming in, not at the highest level, trying to get involved in a Premier League which is the most physical, the most intense, the most pressurised in the world. You're asking too much of a manager to be able to deal with that. Look, he's done well to keep them up last season. He's got to perform a miracle to keep them up again. But he's not the only one with issues in and around that area, because there are a few teams that I think are worried because of the fact that Burnley are picking up points, they won at the weekend. Yeah. Sunderland picking up points, they won at the weekend as well. Leeds have picked up the odd point here and there, although they've had a few bad results recently, and that big 6-pointer against Burnley didn't go their way. But the three that came up are not going to be the three that go down.
No, I mean, Sunderland are arguably almost got enough points on the board already for them not to be really concerned about being dragged into trouble. The African Cup of Nations in January could be an issue because they've got so many players who are eligible for that tournament. It was a bad result for Leeds against Burnley. It was a bad result for Daniel Farke, but somebody of the established order is going to drop. And if you look at the teams down there, you would imagine that Sean Dyche is going to have a positive effect at Forest. They've got good players, no question about that. West Ham have got match winners. Obviously, they've got Brentford on Monday night. We're recording this on Monday morning, but if you've got Jarrod Bowen in your team, you give yourself a chance of staying up.
Match winners or match winner?
As well. No, Paquetá's a good player as well, in fairness. And even Brentford have got goals. Outside of Strand Larsen, Wolves haven't got any goals.
Yeah, that's the problem. They don't finish with any quality at all, and they don't shoot enough, but when they do shoot, they shoot wildly. He's making amends with West Ham fans, Kev, because he's upset them this week, so he's trying to be all nice with the West Ham fans now.
I think they will be fine, but they're a really weird team, right? Because what's the identity of that team? Nuno might eventually craft something like he did at Forest, but the fans won't have that long term because they've got it in their heads that it's this West Ham way and you want to play a certain way. That's one of the reasons Moyes ended up leaving, and that hasn't worked out since he went. So it's a strange club, that, at the moment.
Okay, live football for you every single night this week. The one thing we haven't really asked, but we are going to leave the show on, is this. After victory at Anfield, has Ruben Amorim turned a corner?
Ask me this time next week after Brighton have come to Old Trafford, because that's a tough game. But you know what? I'm just going to enjoy the moment. So should Ruben Amorim, and so should Manchester United supporters, because winning at Anfield is hard to do, and that is a fantastic result.
So you didn't send a text message to the group earlier today saying Manchester United just a point off fifth?
Well, do you know why I did that? Because you lot have been battering me for predicting United could finish fifth. And as we sit here now, that doesn't look such a crazy prediction, does it?
Actually, this isn't true. I've been the one saying to you, stop worrying, calm down, they're going to be okay. I can see what they're trying to do. They've won 3 home games in a row, and now they've won at Anfield. So actually, you should be apologising for me, not the other way around.
It's a decent run of form now if you go back over a few weeks. And again, I think we were surprised when the team sheet was handed in. We didn't really understand the Šeško omission because he's been scoring goals, but it worked to perfection, the game plan. Your mate Mason Mount led from the front superbly. Kev's already mentioned Cunha. But let's talk about the young goalkeeper as well. He didn't have a lot to do.
It was good.
But he just instills belief in the defence.
And he was a bit lucky. There's a couple of times he was a bit lucky because they hit the woodwork. But do you know what? Sometimes as a goalkeeper, when you're settling into a new team, you need a little bit of luck. And he got a little bit of luck, but he also made a terrific save from Isaac, and that'll do his confidence the world of good. Kevin, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
See you soon. That's Kevin Hatchard, the Bundesliga expert. He will be back with us, I'm sure, very soon. Cookie, thank you very much. We've got a train to catch, haven't we? We're going to go together, hold hands on an event.
We've got 2 separate trains now, we found out.
No, you've messed up your booking. Right. We'll be back on Thursday to look ahead to the Premier League weekend. Make sure you join us and tell all your friends about Premier League All Access.